Hunt for treasure, stacking them in piles. Hustling hard, making deals all day. Flipping finds, turning profit our way. Pure Hustle Podcast guides our quest. Learning tricks to be the best. On eBay we make our name. Reselling dreams, winning the game. Pure Hustle Podcast guides our quest. Learning tricks to be the best. On eBay we make our name. Reselling dreams, winning the game.
Welcome to Pure Hustle Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and we're on episode 438. And this is an update episode live. I appreciate all the people that just got the alert. Silver Fox Finance, thanks for being here first. Yes, Pure Hustle, baby. Appreciate you being here.
That's right. So if you are listening on the podcast side right now, we decided to go live again. We're going to try this out maybe for a little bit here, going live occasionally. Remember, we talked about that if you've listened to our previous episodes. If you're not already on YouTube and hit the like, subscribe, bell notification, make sure to do that, because sometimes we go live. We've done a lot of live Monday shows. We've done some on Tuesday, and occasionally we do these long form lives as well. So this is our traditional normal long form update episode, and we are going live on YouTube. So if you're listening to this, the episode just aired on YouTube. So make sure to come on over and hit the like and subscribe button. Orlando, how are you doing, man?
I don't know. It's a loaded question, right? It's funny because if you ever follow Chris Voss, the guy that wrote Never Split the Difference, the book that we've referenced so many times, he says, whenever you ask that question, you always be ready to like spend a lot of time, which this is the purpose of the podcast. But his tip is,
what do I look like, your therapist? Come on now.
But his tip is to instead say, seems like you're having a good day, or seems like, you are confused, or like that way. And then it keeps it short, like right to the point. So anyways, I just thought it was interesting. But yeah, no, I have a lot going on. So I mentioned this in the previous podcast, but I'm going to make it official. I am going to part-time reselling now. Like pretty I am moving.
Wait, I'm gonna pause you right there, because I feel like I get it's over semantics or definitions of words here.
Okay.
But when you say you're going part-time, the reality is you're not going to be reselling as your sole income, right?
Correct. That's what I mean.
But are you realistically going to be doing like less hours of reselling than you're currently doing? I can't imagine you do it.
I have to.
But even if you scale back a little bit, like you're probably still going to be putting in 30 plus hours a week in reselling. No,
I'll be putting an amount of time. I don't know what it's going to be, but this is what I'll say. And maybe we need to make a full episode, because there are plenty of episodes about how I went from part-time to full-time, but there's no how I went from full-time to part-time, right? It doesn't exist.
Well, because it hasn't happened yet.
Well, it hasn't happened yet, but there's a lot involved. There's a ton involved. And so I'll just touch briefly on some of the things that I'm dealing with. So in case you don't know, I did pick up back to what my original calling has always been, to be in education. And I'm working a school that I love and I grew up in and everything. And so it's going to be great.
All right, I'm going to interrupt you a couple times. Yeah. I know you're giving your story here, but I want to get a little bit more insight on this. So are you, and this is for the sake of the audience, because I know the answer.
All right. Maybe I was being vague. Yeah.
But are you giving up full-time reselling because full-time reselling, like you weren't making enough money in that?
Oh, okay. See, great context. Great. Okay. See, this is why this is the podcast with two people, not just me. So no, things were fine. Yeah. Were there up and downs? Of course. Were there rough seasons? Yes. But the reality is I could have done this for the rest of my life, and it would have been okay. It would have been fine. But the reality is things change, right? My kids are grown now, and the beauty about full-time reselling was all the time I had, right? So I had plenty of time to go on vacation with my boys, to drop whatever I was doing. Like I had plenty of time. And reselling, I still enjoy it. I still love doing it. But at the same time, my kids are getting older. I have more time on my hands, and I really enjoy working at an administrative level, in education. And it was one of those things that, unless like this scenario played out, I probably would not have gone back into education. I probably would have still been reselling, right? So it ended up happening that everything worked out the way that I didn't even plan it to work out. I wasn't even looking for this, and it worked out. And so I am doing this not out of, oh man, reselling full time isn't the way to go. Reselling full time is the way. No, none of that. None of that. It is fantastic. It was incredible. It was a great ride. I'm doing this because I truly believe, like, reselling is kind of who I am, but I'm also an educator at heart, right? And that's the first thing I am.
And I'll give a little bit more context to this. Even like you've got a really good setup where you're at, right? Like, I mean, you've got a good amount of space. You've got a nice house, some nice property. You've got, you're in a really good situation. You're making more than enough. You're actually, I'm not going to say you're taking a pay cut going full time, because you're still going to be reselling. Your net take home at the end of the year is probably going to be the same or higher than it's been, but you're actually sacrificing quite a bit for this. It's not like, hey, I'm moving out of full-time reselling so that I can try and up my level of living. In a lot of ways, you're kind of stepping back and downsizing a lot of your living. And I don't want to say you're moving to a worse situation, but you're putting yourself in a different type of situation. You're actually kind of moving. It's like a lateral move, but it's kind of it's worse in a lot of ways, because that's where your calling is, right? So like I just want to make sure like listeners understand that this isn't like, hey, I'm not making ends meet, I need to go back 9 to 5 in order to like bring in the dough. This is like, hey, this is like where my heart is. I really want to do this other thing. So I'm willing to actually make a lot of sacrifices. And I think giving up the full-time reselling and changing your situation does come with some sacrifices too.
Mm-hmm. No, and this property, I plan on living here till the end of days. Like that was it. I mean, it was great. I mean, it was spacious. I mean, I have my own podcast room that I'm in right now. I got my own eBay room. I got my own storage garage. I have, if I want to build more storage, I have plenty of land to put that storage in. And I'm kind of realizing that now as I'm packing stuff. Like I bought inventory as if I was never going to leave this property, right? Because I have so much inventory that's not listed. And so it is. And I don't see it as sacrifice. It's kind of one of those things, like some things are you truly feel called and you enjoy it and it's what you do, right? But yes, on the I would say, as far as like the comforts of life, yeah, it's definitely different, right? Leaving San Diego, number one, is tough because I do believe this is one of the best places to live. It's just fantastic. And the place that I'm at, the community, like all of that stuff, right? But here's the deal. The reality is sometimes when it's when you got a calling, you got a calling. And so I decided to take that up, and it's been really interesting. I do think we should make this a theme episode at some point in time, but there's a few things I learned. I want to touch on those a little bit before we move on. Hey, I like what Rural Squirrel here says. Hey, what's up, Rural Squirrel? Thanks for joining us. Says, having been in a classroom before, I totally get that you feel the tug to go back. And that's the thing. Like it's enjoyable, and I enjoy it like on a larger scale, like building schools, growing schools, reaching as many kids as you can. It's my passion, and reselling is too, though. That's the thing. The reason why we do the podcast for free, right, is because we love helping out people. That's just kind of what Mike and I do. And we've been, what are we, episode 438, and so we have a track record of that for 6 years. But few things I learned. Number one is it's easier to open doors when you got to move with the W-2. So, which I didn't think I'd run into that. But like, for example, in the Bay Area where I'm moving, like everybody was like, you must have 3x rent, you must have perfect credit score, you must have this, and this, and this. And some places it was just like I had to explain like what eBay meant and what I do and how I got my inventory. I mean, there was a lot of questioning, even though we've said like reselling has become pretty mainstream. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. And you know, here's the funny thing is I think what helped was the place that I ended up staying at through the property management agency. I used our Pure Hustle Podcast email just because I thought, you know what, I might as well try it, because and it is a long story, but I got locked out of applying because I clicked on the wrong button and it was tied to my IP address. And so I ended up using the podcast. And I think that got, you know, people recognize that I was like legitimate. You get what I'm saying? Like they could go to YouTube, they could see that I'm a reseller, they could see that this eBay business, because when you show people at 1099 and how much you're making in reselling, people go like, what is this? Right? Imagine like you were never a reseller and somebody shows you 1099 and you're making 6 figures in that 1099 sell on eBay. You'd be like, what? How's that even possible? Right? How's that even doable? Right? And so there was a lot of question in that. The other thing is, we've talked about this on the Discord, and a lot of people don't talk about this, but if you've done Amazon reselling, you end up spending a ton of credit. You know, if you want to scale, that's kind of like the way to go. And if you're not wise with that credit, you don't pay back those balances, it's going to hurt your credit score. Right? And luckily, I've always, you know, paid stuff. I haven't paid everything back all the time, but I've never been late to anything, and my credit score was still fine, and it helped. Had I carried that weight, because I know people, we've talked in the Discord, we've talked about like, hey, I have 30 grand still left over from Amazon spending. I have 50 grand, 60 grand. I mean, you know, and that's kind of normal. If you're doing full-time Amazon, like you're scaling, you are dropping crazy amounts of money on credit, but you need to be careful. And me looking for a place right now was kind of like the worst time, because I'm buying for Q4 in December. So let's say my credit usage is at 80-90% of what I have, right, of all my credit, and I just paid it back, right? Well, that's not going to like boost up my credit score like ASAP, right? That's going to take a month or 2 or 3 months. And I remember like, you know, during the peak in 2020, I remember my score would fluctuate from like 830 all the way down to like 500s, and by like January, February, and then by like March, April, it'd be back at like 700, and it would get back to 800, right? And so you kind of deal with this pendulum, and you got to be wise about that. The other one is, you know, just car loans too. It's the same thing with car loans. And so this is something I was going to talk about, random stories, but I gotta tell you, I bought a car online and I loved it. I didn't buy it via eBay, but I loved it. I bought it online. I'm like, why eBay is doing a great job with, I think they're using it's not, I forget what the company is, but they just acquired a company that makes it easier to buy cars. And I understand why, because I do really think that is a way to go. So one last thing I'll say, you know, because I don't want to take up the whole podcast about this, is the fact that I'm so disappointed in myself, because I started opening totes that I had not opened like in 3 years, 4 years. And I find a full Sega Dreamcast with controllers and games. I found a bunch of Nintendo Wii's with controllers and games. And by the way, the market has gone down on Nintendo Wii's, so I probably should have listed those when I had. I found a bunch of old film, new and packaged, dead stock. I mean, I just kept finding inventory after inventory after inventory, not listed, just stuff I picked up. And I think at some point in time, it was like, I don't want to see this stuff anymore. I threw it in the tote. I'm like, I'll get back to it. And I never did. So my early estimate was that maybe I have like 800 items I don't have listed. I want to go, it's probably closer to 1,500 items not listed. Right?
That's an insane amount, Orlando. That is. I'm not gonna go as far as to say like that is terrible business practice. I'm not gonna say that.
No, you can say that.
But
you can say
come
that.
on, Orlando. Oh.
It just I'm like, how did I get to this point? But that's the thing about reselling. If you're not careful, you will get addicted to the buying, because it is fun, right? Going out and finding stuff that you can flip for good money. But again, if you don't complete the act and you don't list it and you don't sell it and you don't ship it, like you're a hoarder, right? You're just hoarding stuff. And so I have a garage full of stuff that I've been hoarding. and but the beauty of it is I can now list that stuff. Now, the other thing, okay, one last thing, Mike, and I'll be quiet about this. If you're gonna move and you want to maintain your eBay business, you gotta be aware of the property that you're getting. So, oh my goodness, this place I got so lucky because it's a 2-car garage and has a storage shed in the back. So it's gonna be pretty easy for me to transition all my inventory, right? I'm not gonna have the extra eBay room and all that, but I think the garage is actually larger than my garage now, and with the shed in the back, like it's gonna compensate for the lost room, and I'll be okay. But if you are a full-time reseller, like that's something you got to think about, and you got to think about when you're moving too. Like, what's that gonna take? So I ended up getting a storage container, one of those pods, and I've just been packing that pod, and I'm gonna get a truck. But just think about those things because it's not a normal move, right? Because not only do you have to move all the inventory, but you got to make sure that inventory gets moved in a way where you don't damage stuff if you have stuff that can get damaged. So, anyways, that is for what it's worth. I hope this helped out people. I know I'm not the only one that has had either gone from full time to part time. I know what you're meaning. Like, I don't think there's such thing as part time reselling. It just doesn't exist.
Well, I mean, there is, but I do think there are people who put in
But you know me
level
too
work.
much.
Yeah, there are people who put in full-time level work, but because their spouse works, they say, well, you're not a
Yeah.
full-time reseller. And it's like, well, I am a full-time reseller. I just have another source of income coming into the household. That doesn't, no other job would you say you're not a real firefighter because your wife's a teacher. It's like,
Yeah.
that's ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, if you are dropping below the, like, I don't know, 32-hour mark, but that's not even, I mean, I would say, like, think about the term professional. Like, if you're a professional, I mean, you do it for profession, means you can, like, make a living doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you could potentially be reselling for 5 hours a week, 10 hours a week, and you could be paying all your bills, making a living doing it. So it's not the number of hours. There are probably people working 40 hours a week, making way less on reselling because they're not in the right niche. They don't have the experience. So it's not even about, in my opinion, it's not about the amount of time you're spending doing it, but I think you got to differentiate the idea of, like, I'm solely a reseller versus full-time. I think there's a difference between those two.
Agreed. So that is my 2 cents. We'll probably do a themed episode on this because there's so much other details that I never even realized. Like, there's plenty of videos about how to go full time and what it takes. But what about if you have to scale, or what if you have to move, or what if you have, it's a whole another conversation. So, all right, what's going on with you, Mike?
Yeah, man. I mean, things have been, well, I don't know if people can tell, like, my voice is not quite there today. I'm trying to hold it together for the podcast. But been a little bit sick, so that's kind of made things tough recently. And it's just been so cold here. I mean, we had like some snow flurries this morning. It's like this morning at one point it was like 4 degrees with the wind chill. It's like 19 degrees outside, but like with the wind chill, it's like 4 degrees. So, like, garage sales are just not happening right now. And I mentioned really trying to kind of hone in on going to estate sales, but I've really put a lot of my attention on thrift stores and on the local Goodwill bins that we have, just because for ease of time. Like, back in the day when it was like garage sales were like golden in San Diego, man, it's just so worth it to give up a Saturday, right? Because you're guaranteed to hit like 20, 30 garage sales. Like, you're going to be crushing it. But giving up a Saturday to go to 3 estate sales doesn't have that quite as much bang for your buck. So for me, because the flexibility of being able to go to the Goodwill bins Monday through Saturday, or being able to go to thrift stores Monday through Saturday, kind of having that flexibility, it's kind of been where I've been putting a little bit more of my attention. And to be honest, I don't have 1,500 items that haven't been listed, but I still have a decent enough size death pile that even if I'm only buying like 5 to 10 items a week, and I'm selling potentially more than that, I'm still able to keep my store numbers moving up because I can pull from that death pile as like a reserve. So it is worthwhile having a little bit of that kind of cushion. I think the best practice, I mean, we've talked to resellers who've done it, is basically purchase and list within the same day or within 2 days, probably at max, and then try to sell within a month. Like, I think that would be like the ideal situation, unless you've got like a really rare collectible you're trying to hold on to, because it does take that right buyer. But that's probably the best model. So I've been trying to gear more towards that, lowering prices, trying to have things sold within the month that they're listed. And I definitely think there is an element, we've talked about this in the past, on eBay where they kind of prioritize newer listings. Even if you're doing things like the end and sell similar, I think that does help boost some activity and it gets the algorithm rolling a little bit. But I still don't think it's the same as just a brand new fresh listing from your account, right? Like that I feel like has the biggest impact and is more likely to sell than other things. And maybe, like I've said, it could simply be because you've just done the most recent market research on it, so your pricing is the most accurate. Whereas even if you're doing end and sell similar, unless you're actually doing a little bit more research on each of those products at the time you're doing it, if you're doing a bulk one like you're doing, right, doing 200 at a time, or if you're doing like what I was doing where you're doing like maybe 10 a day, unless you're going through and actually saying like, okay, if the prices on these changed, a lot of times I'm just like randomly changing prices. Like, okay, I had this at 25. It wasn't selling at 25. Let me drop this down to 21. Boom.
Yeah.
Dude, and just kind of do that and just kind of eyeball it. So that does help some, but I think the algorithm, either the algorithm is heavily favoring new listings, or you just, it's the most accurate pricing like for the market, and so that's why things are moving. But I do notice that there are some things that I've had sitting forever, and that as my listings increase in the store, that how frequently I'm listing, some of my older items that have been sitting forever start moving again. And it's like just that activity, like eBay, it rewards that activity. I mean, I'll give you an example. I mean, I've sold a bunch of random things that have been listed forever. But I recently sold a pair of jeans, and I had to like dig through so many totes to find it because it was a pair of jeans that I purchased back before I really had my inventory system down like pat, like the way I have it now. And so it took a little bit to find where I had these pair of jeans. I had to look through like 3 totes that I knew I had jeans in, but it's really weird. So I get these jeans and I look at them and I notice that on the legs of both of them on both sides, there's like a perfectly like straight white line on these jeans, almost like somebody had them creased and like just, I don't know, rubbed sandpaper to get just that line off or something, or like ironed it so much that just that, I don't know, so weird. And so I'm like, this doesn't seem normal. Is this normal? So I came in and asked my wife, like, is this a normal wash for jeans? And she's like, I don't know, I've never seen that before. But then we look at the pictures, and again, this was an early listing, so now I would describe things much differently on my listings than I did back 5 years ago. But I looked at the pictures, and the pictures show these lines, right? So I'm kind of surprised we didn't mention them in the listing or do anything when we first posted them. But I sold them a few days ago, and I've kind of had my fingers crossed that I don't end up with a return request on those, because those weird 2 white lines, and it's like starts at the knee, so it's not like it goes all the way up to like the hip area. So it's like a weird, I don't know, I can't quite figure it out. Maybe that's a normal wash. Like maybe there's a style of jeans that has that marking down them. But yeah, those sold, and so far no request for a return. So I'm pretty excited about that.
And the person at the bottom probably knew what they were.
Yeah, I mean they're in the picture. So my thing is, I don't have free returns on my items, and I know that we've talked in the past. That's probably a best practice. I have 30-day returns. So now the more I think about it, and we've talked about it, I probably should do free returns for most items, because 9 times, no, that's not true. There are times customers return things just because it's a silly reason. But a lot of times, if it's an actual return and a refund, it's because user error on my part, right? And if that's the case, if it's like if they get it and they're like, hey, this, you said this works, but this part doesn't actually work on it. Well, I'm not going to make them pay shipping back if it was a mistake on my part. So I end up paying for the shipping anyway. So I might as well get that, free return and not just return. But if it's something like that, my thought is, if they get these jeans and they say that they don't like the wash on it, they don't like that it has these lines on it, they're gonna have to pay the shipping back, right? Because those are in the pictures, and the description was just used. So it kind of is what it is there. We had a question right here. Diamond Roy said, do you guys have 3 months of emergency fund saved, like for bills? Yeah, that kind of goes back to some of the old Dave Ramsey style. Like the first thing to do is build up that $1,000 savings fund. Absolutely. That's if I can give advice, that wouldn't be the only advice, but that'd be one of the top advice that I could give to people, is to have a savings fund like that. And then over time, build up that like 3 months emergency fund. Like what would it take to cover your bills? So yeah, I would say that's something I definitely have. I'm sure Orlando's, got the same situation going there.
I switched it up. I used to have it in a savings account, but now I'll invest it, because things are so
long as it's liquid enough, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, even if I put it, like, let's say I buy crypto on Coinbase, like it takes like 2 business days to get it back, to get the money for free. or if I invested in Robinhood. It has to be somewhere where it's liquid. I used to do it where I just kept it in a bank. I just didn't like. I mean, would I get a 2% return over the year? Where if I invest it in a stock that's pretty safe, I mean, I could get far more than 2%, right? And the riskier I get, right, the more I could get, right? So I wouldn't say right now probably is the best time to put in crypto, but if you have 3 months, did you say 3 months? 3 months or
Yep.
6 months?
3.
I'm a big fan of the 6 months, but if you could put 6 months, right, and you can invest it in something and you could like double that in a year, it's worth it. So I changed. You know what changed a little bit for me was the Rich Dad Poor Dad when we read that book, because it's kind of two mentalities, right? There's Dave Ramsey, like debt is really bad for you. All debt is bad, and Robert Kiyosaki, which is no, if your debt is making you money, it's good debt, right? And this isn't even debt. This is you just taking your emergency fund and making some money with your emergency fund. Again, not financial advice, just kind of the way I do things. Hey, before we move, did you have more, Mike?
No,
You good?
that's
Before
good.
hey, my reseller Genie, they are offering a free month. And the way you get that free month is by commenting on our YouTube video. At the end of February, in our first episode in March, we're going to pick randomly a comment, and whoever gets picked, they will get the free month of my reseller Genie. If you want to get started now so you can get your taxes done ASAP, my reseller Genie allows you to import your previous eBay costs, your shipping, your sales, all that information from eBay, and organizes it. You even get a Schedule C. You're able to track your profit and loss, and you can get 15% off the first month by using our code Pure Hustle. Again, that's our code Pure Hustle, and you'll get 15% off the first month. And also, you can take part in this free month by putting your commenting in the comments. So check out my reseller Genie. All right.
Bada bing, bada boom.
So buying a car. So eBay this last year, and we don't talk about some of these things just because it doesn't directly like relate to us. Like you and I aren't buying and selling cars on eBay. Now we have talked about that there is money to be made doing that on eBay, and there are some people that do that. But eBay acquired Caramel or Carmel. I don't know the right way to say it, but Caramel. And it's basically it makes streamlines your transactions, right? And I got to tell you, and I'm not here trying to sell for CarMax or for eBay and Caramel, but I hate going to a dealership. I can't stand it. It is people get annoyed with send offer and best offer on eBay. This is like that 1,000 times worse, right? Because you go in and you're gonna get bamboozled every single time. There is no honest deal at a car dealership. And I'm sorry to anybody that listens who's a car dealer. You're welcome to tell me in the comments that that's not you. But every time you go, it's always this huge, they give you this number and you're like, oh, here's the MSRP. And then, I always do I'm leaving and I'll come back later, because then before anything even happens, they start dropping the price because they do not want you to leave the lot. And usually I'll leave the lot and I'll go have lunch. Well, this year I was like, I don't want to do that. So I got on CarMax and I found my car, like super easy and everything. And here's the thing. Why did I feel comfortable? Why I didn't even do a test drive. I honestly saw my car. I applied for financing, got instantly approved, which was really nice. And eBay does have that option too. The only thing that eBay doesn't have that some of these other companies have is selection. Right, you're kind of at the mercy of whoever is buying and selling. But I want to let people know, like, if we truly believe you always get the best deals, like on eBay, like I would suggest maybe getting your car right online. And it was beautiful. I got on there, I had everything I wanted, I ordered it, and next day they drove it up to my house, and I had my car. Right, I saved myself the 12 to 14 hours at the dealership, haggling, going back and forth. Now, did I get the best price for it? Probably not. Right? I probably overpaid, I want to say by 1 to 2K. But I was but the thing is, there's no guarantees at the dealership that you're going to be able to haggle that 1 to 2K, right? You might even pay more, right? You also got that last guy at the end, right? The warranty guy. Like, man, what if you're out there with your family and your cell phone goes down and there's a nuclear blast and your tires are all bald? What are you going to do? You need to buy this warranty, right? And it's like the most gimmicky thing out there. It's the worst. Do not buy that end of the road warranty. That is like the last guy. That's the final boss. If this was a video game, like once you defeat that final boss, then you can finally get your car.
I got a funny story with that real quick. I don't want to get too far off topic here, but I bought at a car place near us that their whole thing is like not they don't haggle at all. Like they refuse to. It's like it's like almost like a big box place, and so it's like this is the price you get. Whatever, you know. So there's nothing they can do about it. But the same thing, they always try and get you to get warranties, and I'm usually against those types of warranties. If it doesn't come automatically with the car, I don't want it because you're betting against the house, right? It's like betting, trying to win against the casino. Like the reason they can offer them isn't because they always try and make it like it's going to save you so much money. I'm like, I'm sorry, you wouldn't sell this to me if you were losing money on it, right? Like in the long run, you're asking me to take a gamble, and you guys know that the odds are in your favor that it's not going to pay off for me. It's going to pay off for you. Anyways, that aside. They had one warranty, and it wasn't until the very end that he's like, oh, we actually can't take this one off. It's part of our and it wasn't part of the sticker price. And it was for like carpet stains and like windshields and inside, like they'll send somebody out to like clean your car. And it was an extra $400 for the car for like 2 years. And they're like, we can't take it off. Like there's nothing we could do. Like this one is like part of our business, policy, whatever. So we were forced to get it. And so we decided we're just going to use the heck out of this thing. So every couple of months we're using it, and they're coming out and they're like cleaning our headlights and making sure that they're not fogging up, and they're removing stains inside the car. And we are getting our money's worth out of that $400 because I was mad. I never take those warranties.
It's so, I'm telling you, it automatically adds like $20 a month, right? And if it's like depending on the term, like if you take a 72-month term, like that's paying for it. But this is what I'll say. The reason I brought this up is this is very much like selling on eBay. Why did I buy this car online? Number one, great pictures. The pictures showed every angle of the car that I wanted to see. And any issues that there were, it pointed them out. Okay. Number two, description was great. I knew everything that was in the car, right? I didn't guess it. Three, the feedback, right? This was CarMax, and they're not a sketchy company, I don't think, and it was pretty reputable. And then there was like the ability to return the vehicle. Like I think I had like 10 days I could return the vehicle, right? If you don't have a return policy, right, people don't feel as comfortable buying a car. And then not only that, but then there was the feedback of they have a 4,000-mile guarantee. Or 90 days, right? So if anything goes wrong with the car within that 4,000 or the 90 days, you can take it back and they'll fix it, right? And then the best one of all was that it was delivered to me, right? The convenience of it, right? And it was fast. It was one day, right? So on eBay, I always tell people, if you're able to ship priority, like go priority, because you will gain the upper hand. Because this is why I go to Amazon a lot for my stuff. Because on Amazon, I can click on the Prime and it goes to Prime, and I'll get some things that'll say overnight. It'll say by the afternoon, and I'll buy there. The reason I don't buy stuff on eBay sometimes is I go on there and like I might see a jacket and I really want that jacket, but I don't want to wait a week and a half, right? I don't want to wait 2 weeks, right? I want it instantly. Right? And yeah, you can say, Orlando, you fall into the capitalistic consumerism. Yes, I have, because I can. And so that's what this car did. It provided all these things that I wanted. And so when you're thinking about your eBay listings, think about that too, right? Pictures, description, feedback, return policy, customer service. It's all the same game, right? It's just different products. So I just encourage everyone to keep that in mind. Hey, I just want to say what's up to Trevor Gates here. Howdy from Manitoba, -30. But you are still dropping off 30 packages today. I want to say it's parcels. I always mess up with that word. I don't. It's not parcels, but we'll watch later. Hey, appreciate you being here. I will never catch live, but just wanted to thank you folks for sharing. I've been steady with you since 2019. 29. That's a real
OG.
one. That's OG. So hey, thanks so much for joining us. And Big Dre here says, hello everyone. I'm jump starting my car in the cold after work. Oh, that's the worst. And especially after work, because you just want to get home, right? And then you go to your car. So I've been there. That's one of the reasons I got a new car. By the way, that how many miles I had on that Honda? Do you want to guess?
315.
close, 303.
Mm.
And the only reason I couldn't drive it anymore is because I'm in California. In California, you must have catalytic converters that work. Right? Do you need that in Texas?
I mean, doesn't your car need a catalytic converter?
Not necessarily.
I thought it was. I mean, I don't know a lot about engines. I thought that was like an essential part of what the engine did. I
Well,
didn't
in
realize.
California, you can't pass smog if you have a check engine light on, and
Yeah.
usually it's because of the catalytic converter. So yeah, that's it. But anyways, just wanted to share that with you guys. And again, I bought another Honda Pilot. Why? Because I'm like, continue reselling. Like I need the space. Like that was another thing I had to keep in mind, right? And yeah, I love that. To me, that's the perfect car for reselling. I know some people like I did think about a Sprinter van at some point in time,
Yeah.
but I just thought about
or just go with like an old like Ford
Econoline.
E150 or E250. Like yeah, like those.
Oh my goodness.
Man, like I'm telling you, like you can get them sometimes dirt cheap diesel if you can get a diesel one, and then those things will last forever. And then just make it look nice so it doesn't look like a creeper van. You're good to go. Good to go, man.
Have you seen me? Like it just that van and me wouldn't work out.
Yeah.
Except I did say somebody the other day said you have a very trusting face, and I took that as a compliment. You know,
That's exactly what somebody would say if they don't trust you and they're just trying to disarm you.
You might be right. You might be right. All right, hey, let's get into some reseller topics. We don't have a lot on the table, but
I thought we had random stories. I got my.
Oh yeah, you got it right. Oh, sorry, my bad.
All right. So, this is a quick one. So, since we're talking about buying things, this is a random story. I purchased a computer for my wife on eBay, and I'm really big on like refurbished things because a lot of times, like, especially with phones, like a lot of times I get my phones unless it's like a stupid crazy deal that like AT&T is running where it's like you could turn in any model phone and they'll give you their newest one like for free. Even still, you get locked in like 3 years on their plan, whereas you can buy a lot of times a refurbished phone or a refurbished computer for like a fraction of the cost on eBay or on Amazon. So we bought a refurbished computer from a very reputable like refurbished computer store. Like that's all they do. They've got like 84,000 reviews. They've got like the computer we bought like already had like 1,300 of them sold. So we bought this computer and I was at work. My wife got it and she's messing with it. And I send her a text message like, "How do you like your computer?" And she responds and says, "Well, some of the keys aren't working." And I'm like, "What?" So I get home and sure enough, like a couple of the number keys, like at the top of the laptop, you push the button and it like doesn't work the first time. You got to push it a couple times and eventually it'll work, which doesn't seem like a big deal. But like if you're trying to put in a password or something and you don't know whether or not that number worked, it was like, okay, this isn't going to work. So the first thing I did was I started to go through the refund process or return process. And I was like, you know what? This is a big store, so it's really not going to impact them. They've got enough reviews. But I know what it's like being a seller. So instead of just immediately asking for a refund or doing like this item can't arrive defective, I was like, I'm gonna message them. I want to see how a big eBay seller handles customer service compared to like how I would handle customer service. So I didn't start a refund or do an item not as described or did not work. So everything's supposed to work. And I just sent them a message and they responded back within 12 hours. And the way they handled it, and I was curious because like, are they going to offer a discount? Are they going to just a swap? Like, how's this going to work? So the way they handled it is they sent me a label to send it back, and as soon as we dropped it off and like showed that we started the return process, like sent them a picture of like the tracking label, they automatically were sending us another one. So I thought that was a cool way of doing it. Like they paid for the shipping for it to go back, but we kind of, I don't want to say we did it outside of eBay because they send us the label through eBay. But I was just curious, like how are they going to handle this? Because I hate when a customer just automatically, it's like they're requesting a return or a refund. And it's like, wait a minute, you could have reached out to me. We could have like worked this out. Like I could have maybe offered you a discount. I could have sent you, I've got more of these. I could just send you another one right now. You can keep that one. And so I don't want that item not as described or some kind of defect on my account when you should reach out to me first. I guess I was a little bit bummed that they didn't offer some kind of a discount or some kind of a, whatever. But I am glad that they aren't waiting for it to get to them. They're not like, send it to us. When we get it, check it out. We'll send you a new one. It was like, as soon as it shows that it's shipping to us, we've got another one coming to you. So that was pretty cool. But just something interesting to give a shot.
Yeah. Well, hey, that's the thing. It is interesting. Like I would say, even eBay shipping, like they have thousands of people. They actually have great customer service. Like I've had it before, so it's pretty good. Hey, Alice, thanks for joining us. Alice in Silverland says, "OMG, I caught you both live." Yes, so appreciate you joining us. All right, let's get into some reseller topics. Are we doing the sound mic?
Yeah, I'm not gonna do the sound because for whatever I'll start it, but it always messes up when I start talking. So let me. All
All
right,
right.
that's in the background. All right, Orlando, what do you got for us?
So I thought this was interesting, and I thought this was helpful. So there was actually a study done at UCLA about eBay negotiation, like send offer and best offer, which I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So let me just read some of the highlights because I think this will help out a lot of people. It's kind of the advice we've been given for a while, but it says time in eBay negotiation affects deal outcomes, study reveals. So psychologists have discovered a strategy that could help eBay sellers make better deals. Don't delay when responding to buyer offers, which we've always said that, right? Because, and I would say even when you get like the send offer, like send it right away, because according to eBay, that means at some point in time that person was looking at the item more than 3 times within a 15-minute time span, and so they are really, really interested in that item. So it says new research published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Science, authored by a team that included researchers from UCLA, has found that buyers were discouraged by slow rejections of their offers, and as a result, were less likely to make counter offers. But buyers take note, the research also indicated that a slow response time could mean the offer was very close to the seller's desired price. So just to translate that, if you take too long to like reject an offer or an accept an offer or counter offer, chances are of you converting that into a sale are pretty slim, right? And on the buyer end, if you send an offer and the seller takes too long to end up, replying to you, that means like you're kind of like on the mark. I don't know how they did. I mean, there was a lot of research that was done in this. I mean, they studied a lot of transactions. They actually were out there um, sending out like offers. They said using a set of data from 2012 and 2013 recently made available by eBay for researchers to use. The author analyzed about 1 million bargaining exchanges in a large number of sales categories. Researchers also created a few eBay accounts from which they made thousands of offers to hundreds of sellers, making each seller 10 to 20 offers for collectible cards such as Pokemon and baseball cards. So I wonder how many of these were people thinking they're going to get a sale, and it wasn't a sale, it was just a science experiment. Like that, I feel really bad. Both the eBay and experimental data showed that sellers were indeed slower to reject better offers and faster to reject worse offers. The longer the seller's rejection time to the first offer, the more likely they were to accept the buyer's second offer. The finding was so strong that the researchers could predict whether a seller would accept the buyer's second offer based on how quickly they rejected the first offer. So that was pretty fascinating. One last note, they said sellers may be driving away buyers by responding slowly, according to the research. Meanwhile, buyers might end up paying higher prices or missing out on good deals altogether by not following up with slow responding sellers. So it's just everything we've said, right? If you get an offer, like don't wait to accept that offer. If it's a good offer, just take it right away. And the practical part of that too is there are some people that send like 10 offers for the same item that you have, and they're just waiting for whoever accepts the offer first, and that's the person that end up, selling the item.
Yeah,
Right?
and the idea too of like counter offering right away, because again, like one of the reasons that you get those like when you can send an offer, right? Like you get if a customer is heavy browsing, right? They've got the item maybe in their cart, or they've gone back and forth and they've looked at it a few times, then you all of a sudden get the opportunity to send an offer to them. It's because like they're already in that buying moment, right? Like they're thinking about buying it. If somebody sends an offer on something and you don't accept that offer or even reject it and counter offer in a timely manner, you give them a time to sleep on it. I mean, because that's the thing, right? Like how often in life do you get told like, hey, before you send that text message, before you make that phone call, before you sleep on it, right? Because a lot of times what you're feeling in the moment when all of your emotions are high, and the same things like purchasing things, a lot of times is an emotional experience. I can't tell you how many times in the last month I was close to buying a new phone. And then every time it's like, okay, let me think about it for a little bit. It's like, nah, I don't need it. Like there's not enough benefits for the cost it's going to cost me. Had I have gotten a couple offers at that time, it'd have been like, all right, because I'm already like thinking about it. It's already on my brain. So yeah, you don't want to give people that time. Even if it's like, it's close and you're like, oh, let me think about this a little bit. I might take it. You'd be better off just taking it or counter offering right away. So that way you can actually like end up closing that sale. Otherwise, yeah, if you give them a little bit of time because you're thinking about it, you're giving them time to think about it too.
Yeah. So accept those offers. Okay. As long as they're a good offer, accept those offers and move the inventory. All right. Hey, this other one, I thought it'd be good. We always have these discussions every once in a while, and I thought it'd be good here because it is a slow news cycle for eBay. I mean, we could talk about Mercari charging people if your calculations are wrong, but the reality is how many people are actually selling a lot on Mercari. So I thought, why not? I don't want to go into that. But I saw this article, and this article, this is, to me, it kind of speaks what we hear a lot about resellers, right? This whole idea of that reselling is exploiting poor people, and it's, we're taking advantage of scenarios. So this was from, actually, it was a college article, but they're like professors that chimed in. It says, don't resell into capitalistic thrifting. And it said, as thrift stores become increasingly popular for people seeking out alternatives for shopping amid tightening economic conditions, resale culture can have effect on people who truly need to take advantage of the lower prices that thrift stores provide, and in turn encourage greed on a macro level. However, it becomes particularly unethical when the shopper's only purpose with purchasing their items is to resell them at a higher price for a profit. Consumers should be wary of the effects reselling thrifted clothes can have, from pricing out low-income individuals to encouraging practices of perceived entrepreneurship that seek to take advantage of these people. Mike, I already know what you're going to say. What is your response to that part of the article?
I don't know. I feel like I've talked about this so much. It's hard to.
But we need to, because we always have new people that listen, and it's a good reminder.
I don't know. I mean, I guess you always like think of like, what are the alternatives? Because I think a lot of times people live in like imaginary world, like this utopia in their head where it's like, what if the world was like this? And the reality is, like, if you were to say like, okay, we should just set up thrift stores where it's only for people who need items. It's like, okay, those kinds of things, those kinds of help support systems are already in place. And most thrift stores, even if they're non-for-profit, they need to make a profit. And if you completely say like, hey, people can't be coming in to purchase stuff in order to resell, those companies are going to take a huge hit. If you were just to say right now, like if Goodwill could flip their finger, if Salvation Army could just flip a switch and all of a sudden no more resellers can buy here. The moment you walk through the door, like alarms go off, they know you're a reseller, you can't purchase there. They're going to see their bottom line tank, and all the other services they provide are going to go away, right? That's on beside the fact that we are doing a huge service by connecting people with the items they want, right? Like I think of the fact that I can walk into a store, find something in somebody else's size and something that they want, and then get it to them because they live in Florida. And the chance of that person finding that item in their thrift store is almost nothing. Well, I had to go to a thrift store. I had to look for items. I had to find good items. I had to take pictures. I had to provide a service to get that item to him. So if I charge an upcharge, like that's just normal. That's just business. And I think like, I don't know. I get frustrated with that situation.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's this idea of that there's like a scarcity out there, right? That there's a scarcity of items. When you go to the thrift store, there is so much. I don't think there is one person in the comments or anybody that listens to this podcast, the thousands of people that listen, that will go, I went to the thrift store and I couldn't find a pair of pants, I couldn't find a jacket, I couldn't find gloves, I couldn't find shoes. No, that is so incorrect. Not only that, the prices are still phenomenal. Like you just can't compete on it. Now, is it true that Goodwill and some other thrift stores have raised their prices on other name brand stuff? Sure, they have, but even still, those are at a discount, right? And the reality is, reselling has done far more for lower income people, right? In the way that it has provided an opportunity that is accessible to all, right? I mean, I think about, the greatest example to me is Reezy, right? Reezy resells, right? Grew up in a terrible home, food stamps, as for a terrible home meaning economically, right? Food stamps, struggling, and he found the way out, right? he ended up figuring out reselling. He started doing Amazon. He started doing eBay, right? And he's just and now, right? He has a platform of close to 500,000 on YouTube because he helps other people out. He also continues to resell, right? Other people's lives have been changed, right? And so the reality is that there's far more good done through capitalistic thrifting than there is in this kind of egalitarian, let's make sure all the prices are the same because we don't want people to be unable to purchase items that they need. No, what it does is it creates a thriving economy that people can still either, number one, make a business, right? Perceived entrepreneurship. There's nothing perceived here. This is entrepreneurship. You go out there, you spend your money, you list it, you sell it, you market it, right? And you continue growing your business, right? Or the other side is, hey, you don't have enough. But the fact that these thrift stores stay in business, like you said, and not only do they stay in business, but they are like everywhere, right? Thrift stores are now more than ever, right? In San Diego, I think about like we have like 3 bins now, 3 bin areas. We have one all the way down south, one downtown, one up north. 5 years ago, there's only one down south, right? So the popularity of thrifting has only helped more people to gain access to goods at a lower price.
Yeah, and here's the other thing too. Like this is, I mean, it seems like a tangent here, but I'll connect it. Have you ever seen the show Ted Lasso?
I have not. No.
I hadn't. I just started watching it because I knew a bunch of people who watched all the time. I thought it was going to be just like a stupid comedy. It's actually like a really fantastic show. Anyways, there's a part in the show where this coach, is talking to a therapist, and he absolutely hates like the idea of therapy and the therapist. And at one point, he like goes off on the therapist, and he's like, "I don't want to sit here and talk to you because you don't really care. Like you're just being paid by the hour to pretend like you care about what I have to say." And he kind of goes off. And then he comes back the next day and talks to her again, and he apologizes. And she says, "Look, you hurt my feelings when you said those things." And she says, "Sure, I am being paid to listen to you and to try and, help you in this." She goes, but you coach people, right? And you genuinely care about the people you coach, but do you do it for free? And he's like, "No." Right. And she's like, "Same thing. You get paid to coach these players, and you genuinely care about those players. I'm being paid to listen to you, but I genuinely care about my clients." Right. And I think there's an aspect of that with like reselling too. Like, sure, you could say like, "Hey, well, if you really cared about people or whatever, you wouldn't be trying to make money doing this." And it's like, well, what about every other job? I love teaching. And maybe if I was financially like in a place where I could do it for free, like I might be able to do it for free, but I'm not. And I get paid to do it. That doesn't mean I don't genuinely care about my students, firefighters, doctors, nurses, you name the profession. People might genuinely care about people and be wanting to better those around them, but they have to make money doing it. And it's like the same thing with reselling. It's like I can still be a net positive to me, my family, my community, people who are still getting things cheaper because they're buying used from me, but I still have to make money doing this. So how do I make my money? Well, I have to upsell these items a little bit.
Yeah. And again, if you have priced yourself out, the market will tell you. That's just the reality of it. Right. And it's supply and demand. But again, there is so much out there. Again, I think it's a myopic look, right? That you only see a little bit of your own world and you don't realize this huge world. I would say maybe some of these people that write these articles, if they only got on reselling YouTube, like they would realize how much reselling has changed. I mean, there are people that listen to our podcast that maybe got disabled on the job, right? And they can't work a normal job, and they've been able to change their lives because of reselling. We have people that have, they served time, right? And they had difficulty finding jobs, but reselling allowed an opportunity to make not only a living, but a great living, right? We have other individuals that have family circumstances. They're taking care of a loved one, right? And they can't necessarily get a 9-to-5 because they have to be there for that loved one, and they're still able to resell. And so it's just an incorrect view. And I hope that many of you that are listening, if you ever get these arguments thrown at you, you're able to, go back to episode 438 and go, these are some things that you should think about, because this hasn't been an ongoing thing. Like the moment we did the podcast, these questions started coming up. I even remember like in comments or we, on social media. The worst is social media, right? Because it's anonymous, and we'd post something that we flip and people are like, oh, greedy resellers. Oh, you only care about the bottom line. It's like, yeah, but the reality is me caring about the bottom line means me caring about my family. And if I care about my family will thrive. And if my family thrives, that the community thrives, and the community thrives, we all thrive, right? So we just want to continue with that. Okay, that's our little rant, but I think I enjoy doing little rants every once in a while. Hey, by the way, real quick, if you haven't been following us on social media, we are Pure Hustle Podcast on all platforms. We are Pure Hustle Cast on X. If you've been listening to the podcast and have not jumped on over to YouTube, jump on over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, hit that bell notification so you're notified whenever we drop random episode. I do have a feeling that when I move up to the Bay Area, I will be doing some reselling vlogs or garage sales. I can't wait. I cannot wait to get back to doing that. There's actually some guys I know that they're not resellers, they're thrifters, but like they know how to like find top-notch stuff. And so I plan on learning a lot from them. I may even get into the whole I don't know if it's co-ops, whatever scene where you're selling thrifted clothes. I may get into that market a little bit. Like there's so many opportunities open up for me with this move. And so make sure to follow us, shoot us an email, pureHustlepodcast@gmail.com. And if you want to meet a bunch of other resellers online to go with the journey with you, to get advice, to check out some Bolos, some Hustle of the Week, make sure to check out our Patreon, patreon.com/pureHustlepodcast. Go to the link below. $5.55 a month, right? You will save or you will make that money pretty quick. That's really not much. It's actually more expensive than pretty much anything out. Oh no, it's cheaper than anything out there. And so sign up $5.55 a month for our Patreon. Thank you to all of you that leave us iTunes reviews. All right, Mike, you ready to talk about some Bolos?
Yeah. Let me get that sound.
Bolo. What's your Bolo?
All right, so this one's kind of interesting because I've kind of talked a lot about like camera equipment in the past. There was a phase there. I even joked and made fun of you a little bit for you had a Secret Santa where you were trying to get a selfie stick to sell.
Oh my goodness!
What's the one you thought? This is a while back.
Yeah.
There was a time when a lot of people were getting into like GoPros and like gimbals for like cell phones and things.
Yeah.
I felt like that kind of died off quite a bit. But I've been noticing recently kind of an uptick in people interested in filming and more than just like TikTok style. And maybe it is because of TikTok, like, or those types of things, people making videos of just like simple, like I'm holding my phone, but they're actually trying to make nicer edits. So it's always a pendulum swing, right? Like it goes from like people want like super high quality to like just real raw, like this looks like a home video back to like high quality. And I think the pendulum is moving back towards people wanting to make higher quality stuff because I've noticed a lot more people purchasing, buying, and even using like handheld gimbals. So if you don't know, a gimbal is like it's like an electronic device, and they have bigger ones for like cameras. Those are harder to find. I've actually found a couple of gimbals at garage sales before, not electronic ones, but like weighted gimbals. But essentially, it's a device that either through mechanical means like weights balances the camera or your phone, or if it's electronic through electronic motors, makes it so like if you're holding your phone like this, and you're using this device to hold it, that it doesn't matter what your hand is doing. If it moves to the side and moves forward back, this is going to stay rock solid. So no shaking. And so bigger ones, like if you can get bigger gimbals that can be used for like DSLRs or bigger video cameras, and I've found 2 of them already at garage sales in my time reselling. Those sell for really great money. Even the non-electronic ones, the mechanical ones, like where it's weights to balance out the camera. But I think there's a pendulum swing back towards people wanting to use the handheld ones. And because that was popular, I'd say like 5 years ago, there's a whole bunch of like DJI gimbals out there that people had bought. They probably didn't end up using that much, and they're going to end up in garage sales, guaranteed. And as people are being more interested in those are going to start selling quite a bit more, especially in the used, because a good gimbal is quite a bit of money, especially if you're getting an electronic motor one.
Yeah, no, I see that. I see that. So, I'm kind of torn because there's a few things I could talk about, but I've mentioned this before, but like vintage protest pins from like the 60s, 70s, I know that's super obscure, but don't the campaign pins don't go for very much. Like those are pretty hard to sell because there's mass quantities. But if you find, let's say a Woodstock or a protest march or a civil rights march or anything like that, like you can get 50 to 100 to 200 to several $100. There's actually entire eBay stores out there that, and I've sold to these guys before, that they buy and sell these all day long. Like they love these things. And so keep an eye out there, because sometimes pins, like you'll see them like in a basket or something, and you're like, there's not much not worth going through it. But I will tell you, I've made a decent amount of money. My greatest score was from somebody that just gave me a whole basket full of them, and I didn't think they were worth anything. And 6 months later, I started going through them, and I sold one for 140, another one for 180. So keep an eye on them, because you never know. The reality is it could be a museum, it could be a collector, it could be even a valid protester, but keep an eye out for vintage protest pins. All right, Mike, what are you looking forward to here?
So I'm looking forward to having that end of the month reflection and see. It looks like I'm definitely on track to have my 10% growth again this month. So my goal for this year is to double my store from last year as far as the total net that I bring in. So the goal to get there was to have a 10% increase every month, which is going to be more than double. If I do 10% every month, I'm going to more than double. But that's kind of my goal, so I can kind of know whether or not I'm on track or exceeding that mark. And so it looks like I'm on track already to have the 10% growth over January. So I'm just kind of excited about that and seeing that the fruit of my labor is paying off. What about you, Orlando?
I got to tell you, I am excited about my new place, because it's kind of, it encourages me to reorganize, right, and be better about it. And I don't know, I already got it plotted out where like the podcast setup is going to be. I know where I'm going to store certain things. I know where my shipping station is going to be. I was really blessed by this place. It may be even roomier than what I have right now as far as like storage goes. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about streamlining my reselling. I kind of picked up a lot of bad habits. Full time will let you do that, because you're like, I got all the time in the world. I don't need to list this right away, or I don't need to take care of this. Where when you're part time, you definitely have to hone down, right? Because you only have so many hours to give to reselling. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. And I'm just looking forward to, we're continuing the podcast. We're moving forward, and appreciate every single one that tunes into our podcast. And hope to see you over, on Discord, but just grateful that you're here. So before we go, make sure to smash that like button. And as always, make sure to be real,
Be relevant,
and be reselling. Late.
Peace.